coming. Open your song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Oh. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in.
Okay, we're back.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Today's speaker is Joyce Kinnear. Joyce's topic is We Are All Immigrants. Joyce and her husband, Scott, were long-term members of the Starkane Unitarian Universalist Church in Hayward, California, where I was also a member in the Hayward, Castro Valley area. They've been Unitarians since the 1980s. They were active church members, and we watched their daughter, Amy, grow up over the years. They often opened up their home for activities and organized circle suppers for church members. 7 years ago, they retired to Panama, and they recently relocated to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where they enjoy the culture of their adopted home. They have traveled extensively in Central America and previously in Europe. These days, we see them on their occasional trips back to California and via Zoom at our NAUA Hayward Fellowship meetings. And my wife Sandy and I were also fortunate to visit them last October at their home north of Puerto Vallarta, and we got to experience a hurricane with them, so it was pretty exciting. I hope you are all as excited as I am to hear Joyce's insights, so look forward to that.
And our reading for this morning, A Common Destiny. All living substance, all substance of energy, being, and purpose are united and share the same destiny. All people, those we love and those we know not of, are united and share the same destiny. Birth to death, we share this unity with the sun, earth, or brothers and sisters, strangers, flowers of the field, snowflakes, volcanoes, and moonbeams. Birth, life, death, unknown, known, unknown. Our destiny, from unknown to unknown. May we have the faith to accept this mystery and build upon its everlasting truth. David Eaton.
May the light of this chalice overcome the darkness which exists in so many places around our home planet. It is the only home we have, and light is essential to its existence.
We will now have another musical meditation. Opening words by Joyce Kinnear.
You're muted, Joyce.
Yes, good morning. This is by an anonymous source. Maybe we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Good morning. Bob has a photo, which I think he's going to put up for us now, but if not, I'm going to try to show you. This is just a very, don't try to read it. This is a Google representation. Let me get Bob's photo here. That'd be better. This is the photo of a Google map of how far one immigrant family traveled in 2023. This immigrant family, fortunately for us, my husband and I, had a car, sufficient resources, and that highly coveted item in Central America, the deep blue passport with an embossed eagle that allows easy transit to most, but not all of the world. There are a few places where it can cause you problems. In Nicaragua, we were thoroughly searched for contraband, both on entering and leaving the country for 5 hours at a time. Others have had worse experiences, for instance, Otto Warmbier in North Korea, who ended up losing his life for picking up a poster and being the owner of this passport. But for most immigrants, this particular passport is a lifesaver, and I'm grateful for it. We were able to pass by the desperate immigrants lining the streets in Central America, begging for food or money, and go to a decent or at least somewhat clean hotel with secure exterior gate and barred windows and doors and have it some type of a good night's sleep. We could whiz past the exhausted migrants with their backpacks hiking through the dusty roads of Chiapas and Oaxaca in southern Mexico, and were even able to drive in air-conditioned comfort in Sonora and Nogales past the Mexican and U.S. border patrols, showing this passport when asked and safely expecting that we would not end up in a crowded detention facility. This gift we have by an accident of our birth, and the related protections of this powerful nation that comes with this passport. Sometimes, because of this gift, we look down on those without its protection. There are those among us or in our country who dislike or even hate people based on their accident of birth. Sometimes these people with a different passport are used as scapegoats by populist leaders. And they say that these people coming from Africa, Venezuela, or Honduras to the global north are the enemy. These people, these populists divide us into those who belong and those who do not. There are others, usually on the other side of the political spectrum, who assume that discrimination against the other is a one-way street. Only certain people, by their accident of birth, are allowed to discriminate or allowed to be the discriminator. There is no discussion of class, wealth, or individual differences, just an oppressor versus the oppressed solely by accident of birth. Those of us who've studied the world know that neither of these options is correct. We, in fact, are all sometimes good and sometimes bad. There are people who have experienced hardships that have nothing to do with their color of their skin, their sexual orientation, their ethnic background, or their history of being the poor or the oppressed or the oppressor. And in fact, sometimes the hated migrant is not the poor, dusty Venezuelan, but the Californian. A brief example. One day, about 9 months after we moved to the country of Panama, we were celebrating the fact that our car, after 6 months, had finally finished the purchase process. We were having dinner with our fixer, which is a person who helps you get through bureaucracy in Latin America. The discussion turned to the very poor electricity and the fact that the latest brownout had left us with a kitchen of rotten food. And so we were going to go into town, the next town, to buy another refrigerator. Our dinner partner mentioned that, in fact, the stores would be closed the next day because it was Martyrs' Day, which we now know is a day in 1964 when American troops killed some Panamanian youth for putting a Panamanian flag on top of the flagpole in the Canal Zone. Getting up, we said we were thankful and we would wait until after the holiday. Getting up from the table to leave and go home, a woman approached me, got into my face, and began screaming at me so that I could feel the spittle on my face. She said, "How dare I talk about people in English? How dare I call them Panamanian, not Panameños? Did I not know that this was not a holiday but a day of remembrance? Did I not know that American troops had killed thousands of Panamanians?" Finally, screaming at me, "Gringo, go home." And then she yelled some obscenities. Our dinner partner grabbed us and pulled us out of the door. This was a shock to me, and it was the first time I had experienced such a level of hatred purely by accident of my birth. It was not the last. Over time, we ourselves experienced firsthand hatred and attacks, and we saw them against others. We learned that if you are not Latin American or perhaps Panamanian, you are always at fault in an accident, no matter, you are always at fault. We learned that if someone who commits a crime is light-skinned, the media will report that that person is American, whether that person is or is not, just to create ire and get clicks. We learned that many government agencies and many business people will slow down or stop working if, in fact, they see that you are light-skinned. And even though Panama is very ethnically diverse, there is much discrimination, not only against North Americans, but against others in their society, such as the indigenous and the African Americans. Well-meaning neighbors told me that all Indios were thieves, child rapists, and ignorant, from whom we needed to protect ourselves with gates, window bars, and locks. We were even told that if we ever left our property open, someone would walk by and steal anything that was not tied down. Neighbors spoke in front of me in Spanish, which they didn't know I understood, saying how they didn't want a Black person to be in the neighborhood to use the pool or the clubhouse. These were all very upsetting to us. On the other side, we sometimes didn't know what to think about cultural differences that we saw. For instance, it's well documented that the Nobe Bugle people in Panama have their children very young, 11 or 12, very young. And it's well discussed in the society among schools and the government and the media that many of these young girls give birth due to incest. This is seen as part of the culture. And many people feel that if you try to change that culture, that's some sort of a culture of genocide, because we are taking our values and putting them on that of this indigenous group of people. However, even though I understand that the indigenous have been in Panama thousands of years and were there in 1502 when the Spanish arrived, it still made it difficult for me and my Panamanian Latino neighbors to accept this as just a cultural difference. To us, it seemed an immoral practice. Does this make me a discriminator or an oppressor against the indigenous? I do not believe that it does, but there are some who would tell me that it is. I have had many an unpleasant discussion with self-described progressive U.S. citizens who tried to explain to me that while it might be racist for someone in Texas to tell someone to speak English or go home, that it was perfectly acceptable for a Panamanian to tell an English speaker to speak Spanish or go home, because all white people are oppressors and Panamanians were not white. Therefore, they could never be an oppressor or discriminator. We found discrimination all over the world, in fact. When we were in Costa Rica, they warned us that the Nicaraguans would rob us of anything that was on us in the park. Panamanians are extremely upset and discriminatory against the Venezuelans who come through their country by the hundreds of thousands each year. Many European countries, as we know, have elected right-wing governments, and one of the major reasons has to do with immigration from other countries. And of course, most of us are aware of Donald Trump and his acolytes in the US and some of the conspiracy movements in Canada, which have the same anti-immigrant feeling. Why do we hate those who are different with such intensity? What makes someone an immigrant or different? We think of an immigrant generally as someone leaving a poorer country, going through deprivation, such as through the Darien Gap, where they may be raped and robbed repeatedly, then to end up going through the southern Arizona desert and perhaps dying in the heat, to go to El Norte and a perceived better life. Or possibly you might imagine an immigrant as that Venezuelan family I saw at the local 7-Eleven type store in Mexico just a few weeks ago. The children were hungry and dirty. Mama was so wan and stressed and tired, holding her crying babies. Dad, coughing out a lung, was standing at the door begging for change so that he could buy his children milk. This family, or one like it, may be at a location near you. I've certainly seen them in California and in Panama. I imagine that what pops into your mind when you think of the word immigrant or you hear immigrant on the news is not this image, a white, well-educated couple of retirement years walking the beach in Mexico, climbing the mountains in Peru, or touring sites in Thailand or Slovenia. We know those people. We are those people. There are about 8 million US citizens, which is about a small percentage of the population, but 9% of Canadians who live outside of their country. And these are all immigrants as well. We may not realize that, but they are. Why do people move to another country? Why do they immigrate? Why do they become the other? Generally, as we know, it is an economic reason. My ancestors immigrated something on the order of 400 years ago to North America for what we assume was financial reasons. And I assume that they were treated poorly when they arrived in North America at that time. People from different backgrounds tend to make us afraid and angry, but is it always a one-sided oppressor versus oppressed relationship? Can we make an easy distinction when we see two people, which is the person in that duo who is the immigrant or who is the other? I would say no. An answer, I would ask you to consider the recent novel Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Kingsolver recreates Dickens' work, David Copperfield, by setting it in rural Appalachia. And she deals with the start of the Oxycontin and the drug crisis in this area, where large industrial pharmaceuticals developed drugs which were then sold through doctors and clinics with the sole purpose of using this group of poor and somewhat less educated population and getting them addicted on these pain medications and making money for the companies. This was a vile act of discrimination that had nothing to do with the ethnic background of either the oppressor or the oppressed. In most cases, all of the individuals were of Northern European heritage. The maltreatment of the other in this example was an economic class-based war based on power differentials. We all know of many other situations, such as what happened in Rwanda in 1994, where the majority Hutu killed more than 800,000 mostly Tutsis. Both of these groups were Africans, although certainly we can say that colonialism and other histories played into this. But contrary to the right-wing populist and the educated woke, the other is not always from another country or ethnic background. Everyone listening to me has experienced situations where they were perhaps discriminated against or perhaps discriminated against another. Both of these groups break humanity down solely on the basis of their ethnic or cultural background. They do not understand that we are, in fact, all of us in the entire world are immigrants, whether our ancestors arrived thousands, hundreds, or decades, or even months ago. And those of us with a liberal mindset should be thinking about this carefully. How do we think about it? How do we give each person their inherent worth and dignity? Where do we stand on this? First, we need to remember, as pointed out by Heather Cox Richardson in her Letters from an American essay on March 28, 2024, when the Francis Scott Key Bridge was collapsed, a container ship hit it, and there were 4 immigrants who died, who were workers on the bridge, that these immigrants were not, as Donald Trump would say, poisoning the blood of our country, but in fact, replenishing it. Second, when we look at how we treat the other, we need to accept ourselves as flawed individuals who do sometimes treat others wrongly. who sometimes discriminate, who sometimes see, who have sometimes belonged to what might be a racist organization or power structure and treated people poorly, either individually or in structural ways. We need to remember what it is ourselves to be spit at in the face, screamed at, and told to go home. It is not pleasant, and we need to remember not to act in that way. Finally, those who take wisdom from religion and other sources should look at our sources of religion. Jesus is purported by Christians to have said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me." The Old Testament in Leviticus in our Jewish tradition says, "When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you must do him no wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native, and you must love him as yourself, for you were strangers." Muslims are also encouraged throughout the Quran to do good to others. I will end by encouraging us to treat each other as stated by Martin Luther King Jr. in his Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community book. Darkness cannot put out darkness. Only light can do that. When dealing with questions of immigration, of racism, and of the other, we need to follow these sources of our living tradition, the words and deeds of prophets like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and others. Let us realize that we are all at times both recipients of racism and hurt due to factors we cannot control, whether it is our ethnicity, our gender, our sexual preference, our sexual orientation, any factor. Perhaps that you are blonde. We can be mistreated in certain situations. And we are also sometimes hurt. But we are all, every one of us on this planet, worthy of some level of respect and dignity. We are all new to this place, our home, this world. We are all immigrants. Let us remember that we are all capable of welcoming every other being, and let us continue to be welcoming. Let it be so.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, willing the way on the road from grace to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can live from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us is willing the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
For closing words, I'd like to read a passage by the recently retired Reverend Mark Bellatini, who was the long-term and beloved former minister of the Star King Unitarian Church in Hayward, California. Go in peace, live simply, gently, and at home in yourselves. Act justly, speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers. And stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. And now Bob Myerson will extinguish the chalice. Thanks, Bob. And now I have some closing music.
Catherine Lamar. I'm a member of the Hayward Fellowship of the NAUA, and these are today's announcements. Can Bob or somebody put up the donation page, please? Whoops. We wish. Okay, so if you can't read this, it says to donate by check. You can send it to NAUA 43, I can't read it, North Whistletalk Way, Spokane, Washington, or go to https://naunitarians.org/donate/. Or if you have your phone out, just scan our, I can't remember what they're called, that little symbol that has squares on 3 corners and lots of squiggles in the middle. But that is our assigned donation tag, and we'll take you to the right place. Okay, for announcements, the recordings of the April NAUA Academy session, How Migration Really Works, led by Bruce Knotts, is available on the NAUA website and on YouTube. The NAUA Book Club reads books chosen by members and meets on Zoom on the fourth Thursday of each month. For April this year, we will be discussing The Canceling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianoff. And that happens this Thursday, April 25th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern time. The meeting is open to all, and details are available from Ed Hudak at EHUDAK71@gmail.com. The monthly ministers support group is also coming up on Thursday, and it will be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. Any ministers looking to explore or join this group should email info@naunitarians.org. And we're in the midst of planning for the first yearly NAUA Summit. It's planned now for the weekend of October 17th through 20th, 2024 in Spokane. We hope that the summit will serve all of our needs for connection, learning, and fun. So if you'd like to have input into the agenda and for all the fun activities, you can help us out by taking a few minutes to complete our online survey at https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/ and then the next part is all in capital letters PWHGKMX. And the next announcement is just in two parts, and there's two new activities of NAUA. The first program of the new International Alliance of Unitarians and Universalists, IAUU. The NAUA International Alliance Study Group course is offering their first program, aims to bring Unitarians, Universalists, and others interested in liberal religion from around the world together to share experiences and to study themes of common interest. The course explores the central role of the Enlightenment in the formation of our religious faith, leading participants to reflect on its history, philosophic origins, great ideals, various schools of thought and contradictions, and current relevance. The class will be limited to 20 people and will meet on the fourth Saturday of the month from 1900 to 2100 Central European time. That's 10 to 12 Pacific time. And the course will run for 6 months, but they're broken up into two parts, April through June and then September through November. Further information and registration instructions can be found at https://naunitarians.org/IAUU/. The first class is on April 27th, 2024, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 7 p.m. Central European time. And for the last announcement, the primary contact is Mike Long, who is participating in, or at least enjoying today's worship service. So initial feedback from some of the conversation circle participants yielded a desire for more formal, topical discussions of topics of wide concern and some controversy. Therefore, NAUA is launching the Forum Circle. The initial topics will include climate change, the crisis in youth mental health, the origins of Western religious ideas, and the outlook for liberal democracy in America. After that, the circle participants will choose the topics. Readings on the topic selected will be sent to all of the people in the circle 5 days in advance. The initial plan is for the Forum Circle to meet every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time for at least 12 weeks. We hope to begin in early May. If you would like to participate, kindly send an email to circles@naunitarians.org with Forum Circle in the subject line of the email. We're limiting the initial sign up to 25 people, expecting that people will attend at least half of the sessions. The Forum Circle will be led by Dr. Mark Reimers, a quantitative neuroscientist. Dr. Reimers led the Richmond Humanists in Virginia for 5 years and now leads the UU Forum in Lansing, Michigan, and speaks frequently at humanist and science outreach events in Michigan. And if you missed any of the contact information or registration information, I basically copied this from either the Liberal Beacon or the monthly announcement of events that comes in your email. And thank you for paying attention to this long time. And I think we're about to break into breakout rooms or have a much smaller discussion of all of us.
Thanks, Catherine. I think it's a small enough group, and I think we'd all like to touch base with Joyce and thank her for the wonderful homily that we had today. I was very impressed with that. Learned a lot and makes a lot of thinking that going on there. So very much appreciated, Joyce.